my foot, it's a good idea to use the ring so we don't get the garbage all over the floor. All right, otherwise we have to sweep. What we're going for is something that's going to look like this, and we're going to start with something that looks like that. So we have a lot of clay to remove. Okay, the idea is at the same thickness all the way through. So if I cut this in half, it would be equally the same. Right now this is a little fatter here, and I'm going to get rid of this, and it's a little uneven here, and I'm going to have to smooth that off. So the first thing you're going to do is actually kind of figure out how much can I cut off. So you're going to feel around and go, it's a little thick here, and decide what you can cut off. Somehow you have to get this in your memory, your tactile memory, so you can figure that out. Okay. The next thing you're going to do is check your wheel. Is it on? Is it going the right way? Is it going slowly enough so I can control it? Yes. Some of the wheels over there, you just tap it and it's like that. That's not a good thing, because if I put this on and did this, it would fly off, right? I've done that. It's not a good thing. Notice I've got circles on here. I'm going to take advantage of them. When you throw, I'm going to use a bat so as not to hurt myself in the bat pins. Right now, of course, I'm not going to hurt myself in the bat pins, so I don't need the bat, and I want to use the circles. So I want to figure out where's center and how to get this on the center. So I'm going to look down and line it up with circles. The other thing I'm going to do is use a pin tool to help. Here's the tools I'm going to use. I'm using a pin tool, a big loop tool, a small loop tool, and a stick tool. That's pretty much what I need. Often I'll use a tooth rib, and sometimes even a blue rib. Okay, remember not to bring your toolbox with you so you don't make a mess of it, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is just sort of see if it's centered. I'm not going to go very fast, and I'm going to use my pin tool. I'm going to put my finger down here, make the L, and attach this finger like that, and go around. Notice it touches here, but not there. Okay, so I'm going to stop the wheel and see where the line is in front of me, and I'm going to move it away from that line. Not very far. And then I'm going to touch it again and smooth it out and see if that's more better. Okay, and I can check it at some different places. When you start throwing, if you're leaning a little to the right or the left, it's going to come out like a corkscrew, so it'll have different centers, and that's not unusual. Okay. The other way you can check is by making a circle on the top and checking that. This is sometimes misleading because sometimes this edge will be ragged, but that looks pretty good. Okay, now I need to get some clay and stick it to the wheel so it doesn't fly off. I'm going to use 3 pieces. I'm going to press down with this hand and in with that hand, and 3 places. Some people put in a ton of clay, but then they can't get it off. That's a problem. Notice this is kind of equally wet all the way up. If it's sort of dry on this piece, then you've got to put it in a bag with some wet clay for at least a day, and then it will absorb the water and be all over the same moisture content, and then you can foot it. Otherwise, if you put wet clay on dry clay, it's going to crack. Also notice that this, where I'm putting it, is fairly thick. Your edge has to be fairly thick because it takes some pressure when you're doing that, when you're pushing down. So if you have a thin edge, it'll crack, so you don't want that. Okay, so now we're going to start. First thing you notice, this was not a smooth cut, which is probably what a lot of your pieces will be. So I've got to trim that off. That's why I use this tool. Okay, so I'm going to hold it like this and cut off some of that unevenness. I could, if I use the big loop tool to do this, it's not going to be as effective because it'll just ride up the hills and valleys and make those hills and valleys smooth. This, on the other hand, is actually cutting away some of the unevenness. And just clean it off. Don't go too fast. That was a little fast. But more about like this. Okay? So you just get some of that off. I'm pushing down pretty hard with my center finger, and I'm joining them. Notice there's a little flex in this, okay? So that's a little better. Now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to roll it like this. Notice this is an extension of my finger. It sits in my palm, and I'm grabbing it and going like that, locking one hand into the other, and smoothing it out. I'm thinking if you want to recenter at some point, you can, because this doesn't look quite right. So I'm looking at it and going, it seems to be a little further this way. So again, I'm going to push that way. And make sure you recenter at the beginning and not later, because later it's going to be too late. That's better. Okay, so I'm just rounding this out. Step one. Smooth it, get it ready. Okay? Smooth it, get it ready. Look good. Okay, step two, I'm going to make that first little cut with the small loop tool. There are a lot of two ends and a lot of ways to hold it. This time I'm going to hold it, I think, I can't remember, like that. So it's again an extension of my finger. Okay, so I'm going to make a line out here. That's going to be the edge of the outside foot. And I just cut in. Okay, now it's got a cut here, so I'm going to take the round side and round it out. Okay, and then I'm going to go up and make that go up straight so it's perpendicular to the plane of the wheel head and or your table when you're going to set it down. Many of our projects have flat bases because we're dealing with gravity and they're going to want to sit flat on something. Okay, so now I've got pretty much the outside done. Okay, there's one little thing I want to add, and that is when you notice that in this one, see how the glaze ran? So I've got a little dent in here, a little gutter, so if there's too much glaze, it'll get caught. So I'm going to take this tool and I'm going to go in here and make a gutter. Okay, not very far, but just enough to catch that glaze. Okay, remember I'm cutting upside down. Okay, so now I'm going to go like this and I'm going to make that circle. That's going to be the inside edge of the foot. Don't cut down too deep. Remember, you felt it about how far down it goes, so you should kind of know. Now I'm going to take this round edge, start at the center and pull towards myself. It will tend to drift off to the right if you're right-handed. If you're pulling left-handed, it'll tend to drift off to the left. Whoa. And stop at that line. Okay, clean it off. Think about how much more you can cut out. Cut out a little more. New students will tend to cut through at least one pot. That's okay, just don't cut through them all. And give yourself permission to screw up once or twice. Just don't make a habit of it. Okay? Don't cut down too far, but cut down far enough. If your pot is really thin on the base, you're only going to make the outside edge. You're only going to do this part. You won't do this part. Okay? So we're almost done. All we want to do now is smooth it off, and then you can use this part. Makes your, changes your finger. So I don't hurt my finger doing this. Although you can use your finger if you feel tough. Make that smooth. I'm pressing down the grit that's inside the clay, so when it sits on the table, it won't scratch the table. You can press this down too if you want, and you can press here. Okay. I could also use a blue rubber rib tool to do the same thing if you want. Okay. And last but not least, you can, if you feel like it, carve some designs in here. Okay, or crazy designs if you just keep moving it. Alright, so the last thing you want to do then is carve your name in with a stick tool or a ballpoint pen or something. Remember, a pin tool is not a carving tool, it's a cutting tool because it will just leave an icky scratch. Pick it up gently, clean it off, and there you have a footed project. Okay, when we clean off, just dump this in, thank you, dump it in the water. Don't dump it in the mixer because no one wants to try and make something with all these crunchy things, okay? Yay!